Hey, Tony Gaskins here, just popping in. Now, y'all got to forgive me because my boxing on at the same time, so I'm kind of multitasking a little bit, going back and forth, but it's just not starting first match of the night. So, wanting to pop on here and just kind of talk about this because it's something that I'm thinking about, and I'm thinking about going and finishing, my psychology, switching from criminology to psychology. When I was in college, I was, in the streets. So I was criminology major because if I was going to be playing in the system, I wanted to know how to beat it. So I was a criminology major, but I think finishing up, I cleaned my life up and changed my life and helping people. I think I'm going to go on over to do some psychology, get my old psychology degree, then go and get that master's, then go and get that doctorate just to go ahead and shut the devil all the way up. What you gonna say there? It ain't qualified. What? Here go that paper. Said this means something to y'all. Here go that paper. Cause the world, they don't really care nothing about God qualification. They still want you to be qualified by man, cause they can't acknowledge God in the media, on TV. So I'm gonna have God qualification, and I'm gonna go get this raggedy man qualification just to show y'all how easy this raggedy man qualification is gonna be. And I'm gonna get straight A's while I'm doing it too, just to show you, like, being qualified by man do not equate to being qualified by God. If you already qualified by man, congratulations, here go a cookie. I ain't knocking you, but I ain't putting no respect on it because that's man's degree. Now go get qualified by God. Point blank, period. But this one of the things that I was thinking about, that I was looking at, and it's something that's very perplexing to me, and I feel like it's something that's hindering us in our society, and especially not just our society, but the black race. What I'm noticing is a lot of black men in the media that's over the age of 50 who are not married. And I know a lot of these men personally or have talked to them, and I still have to speak on this regardless of knowing these individuals. I can't pick sides and I can't be quiet. But one of the things that I feel that we need more of is we need more representation of family. We need more representation of marriage. I was speaking to a historian, and he happens to be a white male, and he told me that the Asians are leading in marriage and that they also are leading in net worth per capita. And he said that the black man is the least married race of man, and also has the lowest net worth. And I believe it was the white man that was after the Asian man in the marriage and net worth per capita. And this is the thing that I see a lot of. Like, I rarely meet Hispanic men. I know there's some out there, playboys, like in Miami and parts of New York and stuff like that, that's in the clubs and stuff. But on average, when you see Hispanics, they are big on family. The same thing with a lot of Asians, they big on family. And so, yes, as black men, we have the reasoning, or some may call it an excuse, of being enslaved in America and not really having a lot of documentation or a lot of history on those other races being enslaved in America. Now, I've heard some people say in the comments that it was all the races was enslaved in America, but I've never seen it or seen the history of myself on it at the rate that black people were. So yes, the family broke down. And as I was speaking to the historian, he told me it really started happening for the blacks in the 60s, where the family started to break up. And he said it was mainly because of, I think he said, gays. It was more gays, and like the movement of gays, and the movement of like liberation and freedom. And I believe it was no fault divorce. I think he said also played a big part into it. So people just was able to get divorced without having to, like, pay a price, without having to, prove anything. And then with the gay lifestyle, just in the rebellion. And he mentioned a few other things that led to the breakdown of the black family. And one of the things I thought about, I was like, man, I know a lot of black people who were born in the 60s and they were raised in a single parent household. A lot of blacks in my family, and then you also have a lot of blacks in the media who were born in the 60s and raised in a single parent household. So it kind of it's a lot of truth there. And it was before that, and I remember, seeing men talk about how back in the day it was, mom and dad was in the household, and then the realization came that, oh, these individuals in the 60s, there was a lot that was without a father. And it really leads to a breakdown in our society. It leads to a breakdown just in our race, because a father is so important in the home, just with a man, with a boy developing into a man, and a boy having that accountability and that respect and that responsibility. One of the things I've noticed is, even in my household with a very strong wife, my sons, they can take her for granted, or they can be disrespectful, or and she has a lot of influence when they are young, but when they're older, it's almost a genetic disposition for a male to fear or reverence or respect a woman unless he is taught, because naturally he will feel superior based on physical strength. And so almost every woman with a son can attest to her son getting to an age, especially single moms, where her son won't listen to her, or he is back talking or giving her attitude. Some as young as 8, 9, 10 years old, but then on average it's between the ages of like 13 and 16 where a son will really start to feel himself. And even as males, we will test our fathers. My dad would always tell me that I tried him around 15 or 16, and he said, you got to be ready for your son to try you around 15 or 16. And that's true. And I've had to, hem my son up, and I've had to really, check him and let him know that I will put him in his grave, literally speaking, if he try me like a baser and get beside himself, that I'm not with the DCF and the Child Protective Services and all of that, that I would do prison time with a smile over disrespect. And so he better come correct. And I've had to let him know that in so many ways and words. And that may be against society and all of that, but the Bible say you spare the rod, you spoil the child. And that tears ain't never killed nobody. And so I believe in discipline and chastising. God chastises those he loves, and therefore we are supposed to train our child up in the way that he should go, so that when he's old, he won't depart from it. And so these young men need boundaries, need consistency, need consequences, need correction, but at the same time also need confidence and courage. And a healthy man can bring that to his family. He can bring that to his household. And that's something that we take for granted. And one of the things that I realized is that a lot of men who did not get to see the man who brought them into the world love a woman purely and fully and wholly. A lot of those men have no example of how to coexist with a woman and how to love a woman. And so therefore, a lot of those men kind of crash out. And I believe it's literally just fear. And I'm noticing a lack of maturation in a lot of men who did not have a father in the home. I was in the airport today flying home, on a red eye, and I had a stop in Atlanta, and there was a fully grown black man who, we were at Starbucks, and the name he put on his order was D's Nuts. And the black lady who fulfilled the order and had to yell out, D's Nuts, she was not amused in the least. And so when me and him went up at the same time to get our order, he was like, which one is these nuts? She was like, the one with the name on it. And gave him that attitude because she was not amused. She did not think it was funny. And then the black guy who took his order, I saw the guy ordering it lean in and whisper something to him. And he was like, yeah, okay, yeah, put it on that end. Hey, do that. Put it on that end. And then the black guy taking the order, he was like, yeah, man, early in the morning, got to put a smile on her face. So he agreed to put these nuts on the package, thinking that it was going to make the lady fulfilling the order smile or get a laugh. Now, she didn't have to say it. She could have just said what the thing was. And he would have got it. And I looked up when she said it, and it was the black guy was filming it. And before she said it, the black guy had told the white guy what he did. And I see the white guy kind of looking at him, kind of like almost turning red, almost kind of like trying to smile. But I know he was thinking that's very dumb. That's very immature. And then the black guy, he looked at 35. He looked at around 35-ish. He was big, like an NFL defensive lineman, like that size. And he had a backpack on, like maybe he's in the military. He had a backpack on, but he had a name tag on his backpack that had his full name and his address, like a child. It's for if you lose your backpack, but at the same time, you know, I'm looking at it like, man, I could go rob his house. I'm standing right behind him, and his address is on there. Like, if I was a scammer and I just want to go steal his mail or just swing by there, or just his address is right in front of my face on his name tag. Like, that's supposed to be covered up or on the inside, if you lose your backpack. But it just reminded me of a big kid, and he had on a stocking cap in public, which, and then when I went to get on the plane, there was two guys sitting in first class, and they had on every piece of, the one guy had on every piece of jewelry, every piece of designer, and he had on rhinestones and was shiny. His shirt was shiny, his pants were shiny, his jacket was shiny, and they had on masks. Like, we're in Atlanta, it's not cold, and you're not Kanye West. They had on masks that covered up their whole face. Like, you only could see their eyes. And I was like, this is the most childish, attention-seeking thing in the world. But it just speaks to a lack of emotional and mental development that we are struggling with and that we're suffering from not having fathers in the home. And that's why I'm telling black men it's so important to do what it takes to be in the home with your children and to be responsible and to think about before you impregnate this woman, do you want to spend the rest of your life with her? And are you mature enough to work with her and to build a relationship so that you can get along with her so that you can be in the home with your children? And are you able to suffer the wrong? Are you able to see the bigger picture? Are you able to be the bigger person? Because your family needs you. Your children need you. And I seen this, and it benefited me so greatly having my father in the home, that although I went out and I made choices that were choices of my own, I still had the pathway to get back home, to get back to normalcy because of my father. And having a very mature father my father is 60 years old or 61 years old, and he doesn't curse. And I've never heard my dad curse. And my dad was in the world, his whole life. And then he got saved when I was 6 years old. So when I was really young, I remember seeing him, drink beer and smoke cigarettes. And then when he got saved, he gave up alcohol. He gave up his cigarettes. And I've never seen him take a drink from the age of 6. I'm 39. I've never seen my dad take a drink and smoke anything. And I've never heard my dad curse. And I've never seen my dad look at a woman with lustful eyes. And this is the God heaven truth. My dad does not gamble as well. He doesn't gamble. Like my dad's vice is eating. So he loved chicken wings. Love sugary drinks. And that's the vice of his whole family, like his whole side of the family, which, sugar is not a good vice to have, but that's something that I feel is I could have more control over. Like I could break sugar, I could cut out sugar faster than if I learned smoking weed from my dad, or if I learned pornography or gambling from my dad. Like me choosing to drink water instead of drinking a Mountain Dew, I feel like it's a lot easier than me trying to break a marijuana habit. And so, but just seeing my dad with that stability and that example, it did everything for me in my life, and it helped me become the man that I am today. And that's what I'm trying to get men to understand is the power of marriage, the power of unity. It's not it's not just about us and what we want and what's comfortable. I can admit that as a man in the flesh, I would love to be able to sleep with a different woman every week. The flesh side of things, to be able to see a different smile, hear a different laugh, see different body parts, see a different body. All of that would be invigorating or thrilling or what have you when you're thinking about it from a fleshly standpoint, when you're thinking about it from a selfish standpoint. But when you think about it from a righteous standpoint, when you think about it from a responsible standpoint, when you think about it from a family standpoint and from a economic stability standpoint, when you look at it from advancing your race, your culture, your people, then you realize that it's not advantageous to spread yourself thin and to sleep around. It does not build stability. So as I think about this, I'm like, man, the issue with us as black men is that we are trapped in our trauma. We're trapped in our trauma and our selfishness. And I heard a man say, I don't know what he was talking about because of just a little clip, but in the clip, he said that the voice of someone new or the compliment of someone new always feels better than the compliment of someone old. And that speaks to insecurity. That comes from a place of insecurity. So when you haven't overcome your insecurity, and black men go through a lot of insecurity for the color of your skin, the size of your nose, the size of your lips, the texture of your hair, the economic level that your family is on, the neighborhood you lived in, the house you grew up in, the city you're from. Black men go through a lot of trauma based on those things. And a lot of black men don't heal. And so we become very attention seeking. And I see that in people, men and women across the board. But I believe it's important that we grow to a point that we solidify ourselves and we affirm ourselves and we bring our own confidence to ourselves so that the compliments and the criticism of others don't change us. And Mother Teresa has a quote that says compliments nor criticism should change you. And I got to the point to where I started to make a point in my mind that I do not register or process the compliments of women, that I don't let that stroke my ego. I don't let that make me feel better about myself. And the compliments that matter are those that I give myself and those that I hear from my wife and my close friends and family. But I don't get caught up in the compliments or the praise of women outside of that. And the reason why I said that, and the reason why that I do that, is because that if you get caught up in other people's compliments and hearing the compliments of someone new, it can become addicting, and it also can become a prison, and it can trap you. And so I'm trying to wrap my head around why there are so many men, like in the media, and I know if it's in the media that it could be in the everyday world, who are very well capable of being married, but they don't want to be married. I cannot, I guess I understand it, but it just doesn't make sense to still be greedy, like lustfully greedy, or selfishly lustful, or selfishly greedy, or undeveloped to the point that you can't live with a woman or be around a woman every day, or compromise, or work together, cohabitate, coexist. It takes a level of mental development and emotional development, but I'm thinking, like, if a man can have the mental and emotional capacity to become a millionaire, to become a successful business owner, to become a person of notoriety and fame, I would think that he would have the mental capacity to coexist with a woman. And it's just mind boggling to me of why we as black men who have seen so much and gone through so much wouldn't want that to be our example in the world, and why we can't get over ourselves and get beyond ourselves and get beyond our greed or our lust and represent something that will benefit the next generation, so that they can see unity and they can see stability and they can see black men and women coexisting and thriving together, building together, and working as teammates, instead of seeing division and separation and isolation and contention and combativeness between men and women, because that trickles down and it teaches younger men not to trust women, and that you can't be with a woman, and that marriage is bad, and that you shouldn't be married. And it teaches young women that they have to sell their body, sell their soul to get a man to love them. And it teaches young women that they're not worthy of love, and that a man won't love them and settle down with them and be with them and protect and provide and build with them. It teaches women to be pawns on a chessboard and to give their body and to make a commitment to a man by birthing his child, and seeing that as less than a man making a commitment to them to be their husband until death does them part. And so women are now agreeing to have a man's child, which is the greatest experience that humans can have, is bringing life into the world. And some men and women are not, their bodies are not able to reproduce. And those who can reproduce are taking it lightly and feeling like that it is okay or even wise or suggested or normal to do it outside of wedlock. It doesn't add up to me, because a child is more binding than a marriage. So if you are going to have a child with somebody, why can't you marry the person? Because if you marry them, you can divorce them. But if you have a child, you can never divorce that. You can never leave that. Yes, you could not pay child support. You could like disappear and act like you don't have a child, but you still have a child. Like, that's not something that you could change. But a marriage is something that could be annulled. You could get a divorce if it got that bad and you chose the wrong person, and no matter what you did and said wasn't enough. So it absolutely makes no sense to have a child with somebody that you're unwilling to marry, because marriage is reversible, and we have a very high divorce rate. So that's more normalized than having a child and then trying to divorce your child or delete your child or erase your child or ignore your child. Like, it makes no sense to put the cart before the horse, but yet we are normalizing that as if it is productive. But then when you look at other races who don't have the same trauma that we have, then you see how people without trauma, people without this generational pain, you see how they do things. And what you realize is that is actually the design for life. That is what you will do from a conscious, healthy, whole perspective. And you will see, and let's use the Asians for example, like un, you rarely see Asians date outside of their race, marry outside of their race, because they're trying to preserve their culture. They're trying to preserve their race. And even when they do date outside of their race, it's either like a deviation or it's very intentional. Like, they're still trying to go up. A lot of times Asian women or Asian men will get with a Caucasian, and it's like a business deal because of the financial economic positioning of the family or the societal positioning of that family. And then sometimes you see, the exception to the rule where there was an Asian who was raised in a low income area and just was around a lot of blacks and Hispanics and started to date that race because that's all they were around. And so it was more so accepted. But an Asian who had finances and family had a business and owned a restaurant or whatever they own, kind of business they own, they typically have a pattern and a model that they go by, and that is because they're not operating from American trauma. They're not operating from pain and brokenness and confusion. They're looking and they are becoming the architects of their life and of their lineage, and they're doing these things very strategically for the success of their family and their lineage and their culture. And when you look around, you'll see that. So we as black people have to address our trauma. We have to address our pain, and we have to start to uproot those things. And we have to come to a place to where we can really identify those pain points in our life. And we can get to this place to where we say, okay, this right here happened to me and it hurt me without me even acknowledging the pain of it. And this is the byproduct of that pain, that trauma that I did not address. And this is what I felt, and this is what I'm feeling, and this is how I'm operating, and this is where I'm operating from, and this is what I admire, this is what I idolize, this is what I look up to, and this is the root of that admiration, the root of that desire, the root of that goal. And it comes from this right here. So example, if I admire a bunch of gold jewelry and being flashy, if I get to the root of it, it would be because I grew up in an area where there were drug dealers, and the drug dealers had gold jewelry and were flashy. And if I didn't know my father, or even if I knew my father, but my father didn't have all of the fancy cars and all of the women like the drug dealers who had all of the gold jewelry, then I'm looking up to the rappers and to the drug dealers because they appear to be cool. And that's where we have to get to the root of our admiration and get to the root of our influences and understanding what we're being influenced by. And then we got to start to make strategic moves and make changes and realize that life is not about your peace and happiness and comfort. Life is about doing what you need to do, even when it's uncomfortable, for the advancement of your family and your people. Life is about getting in position and moving the story forward. So although I may not in my flesh want to be with one woman, I know for the stability and the instruction and the leadership of my children, it's important that they see me be with their mom and be faithful and honor their mom and respect their mom and treat her like God's daughter, instead of seeing me lie to her, hurt her, mislead her, and then deal with multiple women. Because when you spread yourself too thin, you have too many holes in you and you become empty. So now if I'm spread too thin and I'm empty, and then my sons become spread too thin and empty, then what do we have to hold and to stand on to give to the next generation? So I have to pass to the next generation love, peace, power, a sound mind, confidence, structure, courage. And I do that by consecrating my spirit, developing self-control, developing discipline, and being a married one-woman man, which represents confidence, courage, obedience, sacrifice, discipline. And that is what we need to grow. That's what we need to build. The Asian men, the Hispanic men, the white men, every man wants to be fruitful and multiply. Every man wants to spread his wild oats. Every man wants to gallivant and be out there and having these sexcapades. When I say every, I don't mean literally every single person, but I mean the majority, because of the nature of a man, the biology, the chemistry, the anatomy, the makeup of a man. So that is a very natural urge and feeling. But what we have to do is we have to evolve to another level of operating, and we have to go into a higher consciousness, into our higher self, where we consecrate our spirit and we deny our flesh instant gratification for the greater good of our people, of our tribe, of our culture. And spreading thin does not build and strengthen. It breaks down. But when you can lock in and you can focus and you can build a household on a firm foundation that is rooted in love and unity and strength, now you can build. So it's like a man going and joining a gang. If he goes and joins a gang, but then he's in 3 different gangs, he cannot build a rapport with every gang, nor can he build the trust with every gang, nor can he build the respect. You cannot be a blood and a crip and a folk and a GD and all this and be respected by all. You got to be all in. And so I put it in that terms because a lot of times men understand that more so than they understand family. So the same thing with your family. You cannot build strength and trust with your family, with your children's, if they see you have blood mama, crip mama, folk mama, GD mama, you got so many different families that you're not building real trust and real love on a firm foundation with any one of them. Each one of them is getting a small piece of you instead of getting all of you. And this is what we have to realize as men, that yes, although it may feel rewarding to be conquering multiple women and to be spreading our wild oats, and although we're able to do it, does not mean we should do it. Not everything that we're capable of doing should be done. We're also able and capable of murder and theft, but we should not be doing those things. So to be spreading our wild oats in this day and age, when we do not have a need for a great human population, and we don't have a need for men to have to impregnate multiple women, we are already overpopulated as a society. What we need is for men to get with one woman and build a family with that woman and apply all focus and resources to that one household, to that one family, instead of being spread across multiple households or spread across multiple women. And for the men that have already made these mistakes, let those mistakes be behind you and then become a proponent and a teacher to younger men to not make the same mistakes. I've seen the former basketball player say that he sees now why God says be with one woman, because of the issues and the drama and everything he has going on, having multiple baby mamas. And so he's speaking from that, and those words that he spoke are very powerful, and it will tell a young man without children who is in the NBA just like he was to not make the same choices and the same mistakes that he made. And then they'll see other men who slept with multiple women, had multiple children with different women, and then end up sleeping with men. They'll also see how that sexual perversion and that sexual deviation could lead you down a pathway of no return. So they'll see these examples as well, whether these other men are speaking up or not. So we're in a place to where we have to start to compare and contrast, and we have to look at the strengths of other races and look at the weaknesses of other races, and we have to see where we're still failing and where we're going wrong and what we don't understand. Because I heard a gentleman point out, he was talking about, I believe he was talking about a basketball player that said the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms, is like a stupid amendment and that we shouldn't have the right to bear arms. And that's why the black community is riddled with a bunch of crime. And it was another gentleman was saying that he was saying that's not the truth. That's not why these black communities are riddled with a bunch of crime. These black communities are riddled with crime because of a lack of fathers in the home. And that is the truth. Very rarely do you see a strong, committed father raise a stripper or raise a gangbanger. Very rarely. When that happens, that is a clear-cut exception to the rule. When a father is committed to his wife and his children, and he deploys all of his time, energy, effort, and resources to his family, he's able to build up, and he brings strength, he brings confidence, he brings courage and wholeness. When you look at these sports on television and you see these individuals, what's up, baby? You need me? No, what you need? That big one? That's what I was saying. Looked like it was too much space in there. Should I take it down and just move it, or do you want me to just try to pull it? Okay. And this is what we have to, I got to, why I had set up a tree for, and it's in the wrong area, so I need to move it. So this is what we have to realize, and this is what we're not seeing. We're not seeing these things come together. We're not seeing men building. But when you build and you focus on your household, your family, you see strength happen. You raise healthy, whole, confident, loving, courageous, respectable, respectful children. And this is what we need. So if we're honest with ourselves and we look at the byproduct of men who are sleeping around and having multiple baby mamas, and we listen to the children speak, they're not happy about it. They're not happy. They're not pleased. And men are making rules and religions and placating and lying to themselves to fulfill their lust, and saying that, oh, a man can impregnate many women at one time, but a woman can only be pregnant by one man. So that means a man is supposed to impregnate many women, and a woman is supposed to be dominated by one man and controlled or ruled by one man. And it's like, no, that's not the meaning of that. The meaning is a man is to populate the world. Our world is populated. Now, under Jesus Christ, a man is to love one woman, be married and be faithful, and to focus on his household and make his household his first ministry, and to build his family with love and faithfulness and consistency. not by sleeping around and dominating and controlling and mistreating women. So listen, we got to get this thing together. We got to really start to dig a little deeper, be a little more real with ourselves, and let's go to that next level. This Tony Gaskins. God bless you.